Welcome into the King's Pulse podcast. Back again here. My name is Brenden Nunes. We got Chris Watkins joining me as well, going to be the new co-host as we relaunch the King's Pulse podcast into the 25-26 NBA season here for the Sacramento Kings. We'll go into details a little bit about kind of what our plan is as well, but we know you guys want to hear. You're here to talk about the Kings, and that's what we're here for as well. Chris, appreciate you doing this with me, man. For people that don't know, we're pretty close, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited to do this together.
Yeah, for sure, bro. Yeah, you asked me to do it, and we talked about it in Vegas, and it was just something that you and I both are trying to kind of, I don't know, talk about the Kings in our own way, and I think we were just kind of both looking for an outlet where we can kind of call it our own and do a lot of different fun stuff because I think you and I both want to do different things, and I think there's just a certain amount of freedom that I think we're excited to express on this platform.
100% full control between the two of us, and I think we're gonna obviously dive into details of Kings and stuff, but also keep it pretty loose. Like, just try to have a good
Yes.
time when it comes down to it. We're also trying to enjoy our time and hoping that
Yes.
that comes through as well a little bit here. So keep it loose a
Yeah.
little bit.
Parts of
When
last season wasn't super enjoyable, wasn't super fun. And I think you and I, after that, really want to emphasize like, let's try and keep it loose, keep it fun, and, try and keep it real along the way.
Honestly, I don't think it's bad to talk about that for half a sec because that is like one of
Sure.
the main things. And it can lead
Yep.
us into last season a little bit, but like obviously
Yeah.
people know there's the drama that happened with Mike Brown getting fired. That leads to De'Aaron Fox getting traded. Monty McNair is let go the day that the play-in game loss happens. We actually watched players in the locker room get told about it. That was quite a freaking
Crazy.
experience. Super weird. Security comes in there, whispers in people's ear, like, "Hey, you guys got a meeting you gotta go to." Like, oh, all right. And now we're sitting here, new general manager, new head coach. I personally am tired of the drama. I also think I got like a little too engulfed in it last year. Not like me
Sure.
personally, but like, just like
No, but you
from
were in the middle
covering
of
the
it.
team wise.
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And it was exhausting. So I do, to your point here, like I just want to get back to basketball a little bit and just
Yeah,
enjoying this more so. But the Kings
definitely.
don't have the greatest scenario currently. Scott Perry inheriting this roster from Monty McNair. And I want to take you guys back here a little bit to when Scott was first introduced as general manager of the Sacramento Kings, talked about, what he feels like they need this offseason and moving forward in general. And I would say most importantly, the identity that he wants for his Kings team.
Look, I'm just learning this roster again. I've watched them from afar. There's some talent here. There's an obvious need. I think everybody in this room probably would agree to it that there's not a true point guard on the roster. Also, as I assess it from afar, I think we need to add more length and athleticism to this group to enhance some of the talent that's here. So that's from that standpoint, that's kind of what I'm looking at doing right now. And the second part of your question was the identity. Any successful pro sports organization or any company for that matter has to have an identity. And that's one thing that I don't see here yet, but that's what I'm all about is establishing an identity. What does it mean to be a Sacramento Kings player? To play here, we're going to require toughness. We want a defensive orientation. We got to play extremely hard, and we got to play together on the offensive end. Share the game is what I like to say. We got to be professional. We got to be disciplined, and we got to have accountability. And so if you fit that profile, you'll see guys wearing that Kings jersey. If not, then we'll figure out how to get guys in here that do. And a line that you may hear me say, and you may have heard this before, I am looking for volunteers to that, not hostages.
I love, for anybody not listening on the YouTube side and audio side, we are on YouTube as well. Every episode will be King's Pulse on YouTube. I love the smugness. Like, he just feels like he dropped a bar right there at the end. You know, a little smiles, hits the table. He did. And that we want prisoners, not hostages. Hey, that's what I was saying when I was looking for a co-host, you know?
Volunteers.
Yep.
We want volunteers.
Oh, sorry. Hostages. I did say
not
that
prisoners.
backwards.
We do not want prisoners.
Important clarity.
Yes. No, we want volunteers, not hostages. It's a bar. Like, and I've used it multiple times since he said it. And I think ultimately, like, that, especially in Sacramento, like, Brenden, I being here and watching every Kings team that's came through here, like,
you can name more hostages than volunteers.
Yeah, like, absolutely. There's absolutely people who are here because this is the last stop on the road, and they are like, it is quite literally either this or nothing, and they hesitantly take this. And I think that's not an attitude that needs to happen anymore in the NBA. Like, you are, the Kings are still one of 30 NBA teams. Like, we say it about, when the coaching, when the head coach spot is available, we always say, oh, is anyone going to want the Kings job? The retort is always, it is still one of 30 jobs. And so, the Kings definitely need to carry themselves still like they are a professional basketball team, and not like there's relegation in this league, because there isn't any yet. And so, I just think Scott Perry mainly there is saying we need to carry ourselves with a certain amount of respect around here. And we'll see if it ends up actually happening. We've seen GMs come in here and talk sweet and not actually be about that action. Scott Perry says all of the right things. I mean, being in his presence, like, he definitely is somebody who you can tell isn't speaking rehearsed lines or anything like that. Like, he is really speaking from the heart, and you can legitimately feel it. But again, we'll just have to see it in action, because he says the second thing he lists in there is defensive oriented, and the guys he brought in, you could say have some of that, but in totality, you're not going to be able to flip the roster overnight. But this is far from a defensive minded roster right now.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't call them that. Weren't a very good defensive team last year, or the year prior, or the year prior, or before. There was that beam team year, maybe the beam team year.
You can literally just keep going, and you wouldn't be wrong.
Yeah. No, like Dwayne Dedman didn't save it.
No.
JaVale McGee didn't save it. Tristan Thompson didn't save it. These guys weren't supposed to be saviors. Yeah, Tristan Thompson had quite a speech. Casey Okpala. There's another guy just like Casey Okpala. Mo Harkless. Keon Ellis hasn't been able to save it. Yeah. And I think just what kind of stands out to me, now we're only a couple months removed from this, and I think the main thing that you hear about Scott Perry is that he is pretty respected around the league. This is a guy that's been working in the league for 20 plus years, right? I believe it's 2000 is the first year that he gets hired as an executive under Joe Dumars for the Pistons. In 2000, obviously, they eventually win that championship in 2004, which is one of the more well-known ones, right? No, like, quote-unquote star on that team, and building it the right way. You're trying to get guys that all felt like volunteers, no hostages on that team, right? Everybody's working in the same direction. And I think that unquestionably they had an identity, and that toughness. I think the identity of that team is kind of, if that can be embraced by this team, that's how you get the optimal version. But when Scott Perry's saying, hey, we don't really have a point guard. Okay, you went and got Dennis Schroder. You don't really have length and athleticism. It didn't get solved. Now you're linked to Jonathan Kuminga, which fits that for sure, but he also doesn't really fit your team-oriented aspect there, right? Nobody's going to check every single, maybe not nobody, but most guys aren't going to check every single box, but you'd like to meet in the middle with some of these. The other thing you mentioned is that they don't really have an identity. And to me, when the only real change, I would say, is that you swapped in a point guard, which is a big deal, right? Scott Perry will talk about, like, that's the guy that's setting the tone on both ends of the floor, and both ends being the key there, right? It's not just initiating the offense, because you still have DeMar, you still have Zach, you still have Domas. Those guys are still going to do that. It's also, you're the point of attack defender. You're the guy that everybody else is watching be the first guy defending on that possession. And so everybody else is, at least the idea, is going to follow suit. To me, that's not enough for this team to have an identity. And I don't really know what to make of, hey, we want competitive, tough, team-oriented, disciplined, professional guys. I think that all sounds great. And I think that's what you're supposed to say. And I think he means it. I'm not trying to say that it's all fluff, but like Monty McNair sounded very similar. I think most guys, of course, are looking for high character people. Now, there might be some teams that you see being a little bit more risky. Like sometimes San Antonio brings in some guys where you're like, damn, you're going to bring that guy in, huh? And they're just going to try it. Like maybe that is an aspect here, but I feel like most guys are looking for people that are obviously high character, going to fit in their system. I just still don't know what that means. This identity, a defensive orientation, playing together. Like, is it that different than what we were hearing before?
No, I mean, at least maybe not from the GM position. I would say Mike Brown definitely was chirping that every single day. It was defense. At some point, these guys have to play defense. The offense is fun. It's great. But at the end of the day, if we want to win, we have to defend. Monty McNair would speak more to how to get to that point. Hey, we need to get some length. We need to get some versatile forwards in here. He never ended up getting those forwards, but again, that kind of more speaks to what we're saying about Scott Perry of you can say all of the right things, and you can even have some of these deals lined up, but at the end of the day, it's a what you actually did thing. And I think that's kind of what you're more speaking to is Scott Perry is saying all of the right things, and again, we're acknowledging you're not going to flip the roster overnight, but if you just look at where the roster currently stands, even the small additions that he did bring in, you can throw Neat Clifford into there as well. You want to throw Max in there as well. It's just it's not enough to really change the identity of what is already there. Now, I will say, almost in a spirit of Monty McNair, in a what could be, if you bring in a Russell Westbrook, if you bring in a Jonathan Kuminga on top of that, now I start to at least see some form of an identity. Again, Kings fans can be very upset, especially when it comes to the Russell Westbrook part of it. Yeah. But I will at least say really, really, really focus on the identity part of what Scott Perry's talking about with everything. The one thing that stuck out to me in his Dennis Schroder intro press conference is he really, really pointed at the fact he loves how hard of a worker Dennis Schroder is, and how it can be an example. I think the only thing that I think everybody will agree about Russell Westbrook's basketball game is he busts his ass every single possession. He is running down the floor. He is playing at 115% every single possession, for better or worse. I think that, and I should also say, granted, what else is an agent supposed to say? Aaron Turner, Jonathan Kuminga's agent, just went on 95.7 in the Bay
everywhere.
Area. He also went on the Hoop Collective. He went on, I believe he went on some other podcast as well. I want to say Warrior Talk podcast or something. He was all over the place, dude.
Bro, I've never seen a press run like this mid-negotiation.
Dog, generational press run from Jonathan Kuminga's agent. And I say all this to say, he pointed to Jonathan Kuminga, said I've never been around a guy who works harder. If anything, I think he even did the stupid cliche of if anything, people said he works too hard.
He did. He did I always say the biggest critique of Jonathan is that he just works too hard or something like that.
Crazy. But let's just live in a world where that's actually 100% true.
Yeah.
I think that's the identity that you can at least say, forget I'm sorry, but forget wins and losses. It's about every single night knowing what you're going to get, or at least, again, knowing the type of player that you're going for, the kind of player that you want to be bringing in the future. I at least at that point would understand what the vision is, what we're trying to do, because right now I think it was a big problem with last season. We don't know what we're really, what are we going for? Are we going for the plan? What is our goal? What's our destination? Are we trying to develop Keegan? No identity. It's exactly what Scott Perry said. We need to have, even as media, as fans, and absolutely as players, they need to know what exactly we're trying to build towards, so that even if we do get beat by 15 or 25 on a given night, we can say, hey, Jonathan Kuminga and Keegan Murray combined for 50 points tonight, and that's a real positive that we can take regardless of the outcome of the game.
100%. I mean, I think it's weird because you could see how both these guys fit into certain aspects of what Scott say, and then they almost seem like opposite on some of the other ends, right?
Sure.
Where, I think specifically when you go into the Kuminga thing a little bit there, it's that I don't know that I see, again, like I mentioned earlier, the team-oriented part of it all, right? And like, honestly, I don't think that you have the greatest impression of the professional aspect of how all this has gone down either. Not that the Warriors are faultless in this either, but I think that there are valid questions with some of that stuff, right? And accountability. Like, I don't know that I ever heard, I did hear Kuminga's agent a little bit be like, yeah, JK could have played better. But for the most part, it was talking about the Steve Kerr kind of screwing him over here. He was also kind of targeted at Kerr a little bit, which is not very surprising with how everything is going.
Wonder why that is, right? It's like, you could look, every athlete in the history of ever has said, coach is playing me, bro. Like, coaches, like, it's not, I'm a great player. It's just coach doesn't mess with me for whatever reason. Sometimes it's right, and sometimes it's just like, hey, man, to your accountability point, like, you're not seeing the faults in what you're doing. We just don't know the actual truth. But again, you have to give the Warrior, and this is where Jonathan Kuminga maybe is just going to always lose the PR battle. You have to give the Warriors the benefit of the doubt because they've just, as much as I hate to say it, they've been the class of 100%. Sports, really, in all capacities across the board. For this entire run. And so if you're going to say, put your reputation on either Jonathan Kuminga or this dynasty that has been built over the past 15 years, it's tough to say, oh yeah, Jonathan Kuminga is the party that's actually right in all this.
For sure. My dad's a big Warriors fan. I kind of grew up around a bunch of Warriors fans, so it's really funny talking to people about this stuff. And like, I was just hanging out with some people this past weekend. My dad's like, yeah, did you hear that? Like, I heard that Jonathan Kuminga was the one that put out the Jordan Poole Draymond video. I'm like, Dad, I don't think that's true.
Come on.
I'm like, I don't think that's true, Dad.
That's some real deep state type stuff right there.
That's crazy.
That is
and for what it's worth, I am not saying that happened. I have no clue, but that is the point we are at, And I think to what you're saying, people are going to point at Kuminga before they point at the Warriors organization a little bit here.
Right.
But I think also to tie into your, like, what the hell are we watching for? Because honestly, it feels like we're signing up for that. They have signed up for 2 years of limbo right here, right? When a new GM takes over, you are waiting for it to become his team, right? There's this slight adjustment period, sometimes not so slight. You would hope that it's a little bit quicker sometimes, but they're just inheriting that team. Like, this is still Monty McNair's team with Dennis Schroder. Like, there's no difference. And, whatever, maybe Monty didn't make the De'Aaron trade, whatever it may be, right? But Scott didn't, for sure. Scott definitely did not. But he's just inherited this team, and he has been very limited in it's not, I think that they are trying to make moves, right? I think that, they've probably had conversations about DeMar, about Zach, about Domas, probably. They probably had conversations about everybody.
Malik, right?
They absolutely had conversations about Malik, Devin Carter, Dario Saric. Those three are not safe. I'll tell you that. But I just think that we're waiting for those moves to be made, and that feels very similar to these last couple of years of Monty McNair, for what it's worth, which isn't the greatest feeling, I think, from a fan base standpoint, where you're kind of sitting on your hands and waiting for something to happen here. But I also get that, like, hey, I'm not just trying to, I don't need to flip this instantly. This doesn't have to happen overnight. Sure, getting the length and athleticism that he said that he thinks they need from the outsider perspective. And for what it's worth, I think it's important to point out that's his intro presser. Maybe opinions change a little bit down the line, right? But I would still say I think that they're lacking in that aspect, not for a lack of trying, but it's going to be the same guys here where it feels like, I'm curious if you feel the same way, but I feel like we just have to wait out these 2 years, and maybe there will be a timeline where, we reach mid-season. And I always thought of Denver prior to the Cam Thomas trade, or Cam, Cam Johnson trade
Cam
that like,
Johnson,
hey,
yeah.
maybe all of a sudden at the deadline, they're like, we just really need one more offensive guy. And you know what? Zach makes sense for the year and a half. DeMar makes sense for a little bit, and maybe one of those scenarios will come up, but it feels like we're just waiting for that to happen. And if it doesn't, then eventually those contracts are going to be gone in 2027. And then that's where we get to see Scott Perry's team. But like, so what does that mean for this year?
The next 2 years.
Right. And that's where like a Kuminga makes sense, right? Like you're saying, right? Because I kind of think the biggest thing right now, like what are you watching for going into this season right now, right? Like Keegan's growth. Keegan also no contract, so definitely going to be keeping tabs on Keegan and Keon for that reason.
Yeah.
But that's probably like all the internal growth. I mean, Neek's going to be great to see. I like Max. I'm not going to throw Max in this group necessarily. Like I'm going to be paying attention, but I just, temper expectations a little bit on the second round pick. And Devin Carter, like I'm just checking to make sure if his shoulder's going to be good. Like,
absolutely.
But after that, I maybe I'm speaking to, I don't have very much confidence in this group, and I don't think I'm alone in that.
Well, I think half the problem is all the guys you just listed are the youngest players on the team, obviously, but they're all fairly buried on the depth chart with the exception of Keegan Murray. Like Keegan obviously has his spot, his role, but I think the problem that everybody has with the formation of this, and I think everyone would agree with you, Brenden, that those are the things that we are all looking at in terms of this roster. It's just, I mean, even Keegan isn't necessarily in a spot in which he is being properly developed. Like, how many do we think Keegan Murray is a 4? I feel like we've all decided that Keegan Murray is probably best at the 3 and having another big body guy next to him. And that's where I think a Jonathan Kuminga might be a good 4 partner next to him. But yeah, I mean, I think that's been the problem is all of those guys, their development isn't being prioritized right now. And it's going to be a lot of Zach LaVine. It's going to be a lot of DeMar DeRozan, Malik Monk, of course, Domantas Sabonis. I don't even know really where we're going to see Nick Clifford. Keon Ellis, I kind of was really thinking about it for the first time today. You mentioned Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan at the trade deadline. What are the Kings at this point keeping Keon Ellis for? He's going to be an unrestricted free agent going into this offseason.
I love you said this.
I'm sorry, but like at this point, you're not going to retain him past this year. If you wanted to retain Keon Ellis, your best opportunity was to do it this offseason while he, kind of needed to get or was looking to get a contract from you. He's going to be taking all the offers, and maybe the Kings will. I doubt that they're going to stifle his minutes to try and devalue him. I think at this point,
the old Dante DiVincenzo,
essentially. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like there's a very minimal chance in which the Kings bring Keon Ellis back. As I was doing the radio show today, Kyle Ledbetter, pointed out why not do a version of what the Chicago Bulls just did with Alex Caruso. And I think that's the most logical route for Keon Ellis is figuring out how you can turn Keon, who's probably gone at this point, turn him into another young, I guess at this point, hopefully a point guard, as they did. They turned Caruso into Josh Giddey and then signed Josh Giddey to what was a 5-year, $100 million contract this offseason. That's unfortunately what the route that I see for like the second most important player in terms of like who we want to see development from. So I don't know. I mean, I don't really know if I answered your question, but I mean, to me, it's just going to be a weird. And I guess you ultimately asked me what I'm looking for this season. Like, I'm looking for some sort of direction, and mainly, I just think it's in this team's best interest for that direction to be down. I mean, once you traded De'Aaron Fox, to me, that is you are waving a flag or you're hey, I'll speak 2K because me and Brenden are 2K pals. Like in franchise mode, you can set like, hey, we're going from contending to, hey, we're buying to we're selling when you're doing the franchise mode. The Kings, the second they trade De'Aaron Fox, they're changing that direction to selling to we are trying to be in the lottery. And the problem is that's not the direction that they went as an organization. They still are having very competitive players out there, and they still might not find success, but I think there's just a big difference between, intentionally not finding success versus we kind of ended up in this situation where it is in our best interest to not be successful.
It sounds like your 2K team is definitely selling your Kings
Bro,
2K team.
That's all I do every single time. I try and be like there's not really anybody like me, honestly. I just, I'm churning them out. I treat it like it's college basketball.
Sam Presti out here.
Every couple years, exactly. Sam Presti. Every couple years, I need to turn it over. Got to keep these guys on their toes.
And honestly, I keep thinking about how if the Kings would have embraced a rebuild, they multiple times over could have completed a rebuild by now. And we have seen many teams
100%.
rebuild in the timeline where they have refused to do so for the past decade plus. OKC, Houston has rebuilt in recent years. Memphis has rebuilt from the freaking grind and grit and grind. They had a whole period where they were ass for a while. And
they just fueled the Pacers' whole comeback.
Yeah,
like the Pacers.
Yeah.
Like
how hilarious is it that we're like? I was listening to one of the shows on our station this morning. They're talking about how the Pacers are like a model for the Kings. I'm like, well, they have to find their own version of the Kings to make a trade with. I'm like, I don't know what other team is trading Tyrese for Domas for them. Like,
oh my goodness.
And I think obviously that move looks a lot worse in hindsight, but it was highly critiqued at the time. And it dulls down because you make the playoffs, and maybe if you treat the whole thing right, you go do the Pascal trade, you do an OG trade, that all looks way different in hindsight, right? Yeah, I know. But the one thing I want to go back to your Keon point, because I actually have that in here too.
Beautiful.
And it's hilarious because Alan now gives me credit all the time for being the one that apparently is just like pushing trading Keon, which is not happening. It's the scenario of all this. I think the one thing I disagree with you a little bit is I think they have a decent chance of like keeping Keon around.
I haven't looked at their offseason
maybe like a coin
status,
flip,
but
well, because I think they can still extend him
That's
throughout the season, right? But if you're Keon, honestly, why stay here? To be honest,
why not at least explore your options?
I would 100% am going to be doing that if I'm him, and he probably already is. That is obviously his agent's job in all this process, and we'll keep that quiet, whatever. No Pablo Torre Steve Ballmer over here, but I just think that those conversations are probably already happening. And for Keon's being a guy, I remember him talking about how the combine, and he didn't play very well there, and that's part of the reason he went undrafted. And he was like, yeah, that's just not my type of game. Like people are all just playing their own ball there, and a little bit of what the Kings got going on at certain times. But point being, he's a player that just like fits into everything, right? I think that he is more of a ceiling raiser than a floor raiser, and he would be a beautiful piece on a championship contender. Like, is there a world where maybe your Josh Giddey equivalent is, can you get Anthony Black? Can you get Reed Shepherd? You know what I mean? And those are probably shooting pretty high. Those are definitely shooting high, because I do think, for what it's worth, Keon is, at this point, I think overrated by a lot of Kings fans, because there still is the aspect here of, there's honestly times where he struggles to get the ball across half court if he's playing point guard. Like, I don't think that he's really a point guard right now. He's more of a 2. He also struggles a little bit to guard threes because of his size. So I don't think that there's as much versatility as some of these other crazy defenders that he may get compared to, even if he is extremely disruptive, like one of the best point of attack guys there is. I just still think that it takes the right team, right? And the right fit and everything. And from his perspective, if I'm him, I am 100% looking at other places and strongly considering that. And that's one of the reasons why I was curious if you thought it was a hot take to say that I think they should consider trading Keon, because to everything we talked about, what are you working with right now? Is Keon going to be a part of your next good team? Like, what's the best case scenario when this team is trending upwards again, where you feel like, they could make the first round and have an exit, and you're like, hey, like, there's still room to grow, I guess. That 2027?
Yeah, I guess it would have to be 27, because if it happens this, I was just going to be most optimistic and say there's a chance this year, but realistically, and again, that stems from a lot of the fan frustration is, what are we playing for? Okay, let's live in the world where the Kings your example, make the we'll just say do exactly what they did in the first playoff stint, the Beam team. They first round, they go to 7 games, they fight hard. Would we still feel like, hey, like next season, I kind of feel like we could be a second round team. Maybe why can't we be a conference final? I feel like the problem ultimately would be like, okay, well, DeMar DeRozan's going to be another year older. Like, is it realistic to expect that he's going to continue at this same level of theoretical production? Zach LaVine had a great season. Is this just a blip, or is it going to be, did he have some revelation over the season? It just feels like there would be so many other questions, unless it is just maybe Domantas Sabonis starting to look a lot more like Nikola Jokic. That could maybe be the only spot where I could see that happening. And realistically, I mean, I think Domantas Sabonis is, as a compliment, has absolutely maxed out every ounce of potential that he has in himself. So I just don't really see something like that happening. I don't know. I was trying to be hyper optimistic, but the answer to your
for
question is
sure.
probably 2 years.
And point being, like, is Keon part of the next good Kings team? I don't think so. It depends what you define good as, right? Because there is, I mean, I agree, because you're right, actually. Like, it could say it's a 4-year deal, right? That goes way beyond the timeline we're talking about. This could look way differently. Jonathan Kuminga could be 25 and a perennial all-star for all we freaking know. Also, I just think that they don't have that young talent right now. They don't have this upside, and you don't have many pieces that have really good value. So that's why I look at Keon and I'm like, hey, you might actually be able to get something good here, right?
Yes, actually like a positive.
Yes.
Because you're not getting a positive for Devin Carter.
No. I also think that there's a world where you're moving Zach or DeMar, and it's like, all right, we're trying to go get a young guy in this too. All right, we'll throw Keon in too. Absolutely. Like, that's the best sweetener you have. The Devin Carter doesn't seem to be moving people. No. So I just to say, I think it should be a part of the conversation. I don't think that they should be doing everything they can to get rid of Keon. I just think that is one of their more valuable pieces, and they clearly need to get more young talent and upside in here. So I would probably at least consider that. I'm not hanging up the phone when somebody has the conversation with me.
So since it seems like you've also done a little bit more legwork on it, would you say that if the Kings are in a position where, we'll say they're 5 days out from the trade deadline, the season, they're kind of where we expect them to be, 11, 10, 12 fighting, but not really in anything serious. Would you say that it is more beneficial for the Kings at that point to keep Keon Ellis, roll the dice into free agency, or at that point start to aggressively look? Because realistically, I think that's the situation that they're probably going to be in, is where they're going to have to actively make they have to make a decision on whether or not which path they're going to take.
I like to imagine that we'll have, and that they even more so would have, a good feel for how that offseason may go by that point. Again, some conversations that normally take place that we pretend like they don't. But I think that you probably have a little bit of an idea, right? And there is still an aspect here of, like, Keon still kind of has to prove himself with certain things. I would still say there's a fairly small, it's probably more of a sample size that I'm giving him credit for. What that he can do, that he can produce in a limited level. I guess I'm probably just getting mixed up with where I think he's a little bit overhyped by Kings fans, because you do know what you're getting. These other teams, like, he would play consistently on Denver,
Yeah, any team in the league. I think it's a fair question, and I think maybe what you're trying to say is, like, okay, we know you're an NBA player, you're a rotation player 100%, but this is going to be a big season for Keon in the sense of, like, is there maybe more there? Is there maybe something else there that would make you make more money? Because we kind of know. I think it's still a little tough to try and figure out here today where Keon fits in terms of, like, that salary number that he would be fairly priced at, especially with the new CBA, where it does feel like there's slots for every kind of role player within your team in terms of salary figure. So I think this is going to be a big year for Keon to determine if somebody's going to pay him potentially for what he can be in the future, or I think if we just kind of see a same level, which is a great player. But if we kind of just see the same Keon Ellis, I think he's probably going to be paid more so for who he is as a player, if that makes sense.
For sure. Yeah, and I think it's a little tough to gauge right now, right? Like maybe like 15. I think 20 is a little too high, but also if you're talking like fifth starter on a championship team, I'm like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, would you pay him what you're paying Malik Monk? I mean, that's what 17, right? 17 to $20 million is around the Malik Monk territory.
Yeah. What was it? Malik was, I believe, 78 over 4. It's a 19 and a half, 20. I don't think so. Like in my mind, if that's what the Kings are facing, then you move them. Like, is it worth for the Kings to pay top end dollar for a role player when they're not really competing? But
no, it's also a luxury piece.
I would
you don't
think
pay
from
for a
their
standpoint on that spot. Yeah,
you don't. But also, they're trying to their own definition of compete. Scott would say something relevance, continued relevance. Damn, I totally am losing the word. But want to remain competitive, and there's just different definitions of that. I think we could gather over time here, and you've had more experience with this. Obviously, the Kings don't want to bottom out. They want to remain competitive, and that's where a guy like this does matter more than we're giving off, because I think we both look from the perspective of, hey, it's pretty black and white. Either you're a good team or you're not, low key. Yeah. And well, there's more gray, but to put it simply, the Kings are definitely on the bad side between the two, right? You're a buyer or a seller, going back to your thing, and they should be sellers, but I don't think that they view it that way, which is what makes this a little bit weird. Like, I do think that Scott has been given a good amount of control. I will also add that I think Monty McNair was given a lot of control when he first comes in. I think it's easy for these guys to be trusted initially, and then it's when somebody's like, I don't know about this guy so much anymore, where it starts to get a little bit questionable at times. But I do think that the moves that we're going to see are, for the most part, under Scott Perry's control here. So maybe he has more room to sell than I'm giving credit for, but I certainly don't think it's fully tank. And if you are just trying to do more of a retool, then that's where retaining a guy like Keon does make sense within their parameters, I guess, even though it may not within ours.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just, as we've outlined, it's just a really complicated situation. And I think, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know when we'll really get an answer, because also the hidden layer in all of this is, and today is not the day to go through it. We can maybe do it next episode, but I don't know if Keon's even in line to get minutes. I mean, it's such a cluster at the guard position specifically, but even the forward, if you want to put Keon there. I mean, you mentioned Neek Clifford. I would imagine Neek's got to get minutes. Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, DeMar DeRozan's going to play the 2. Devin Carter, is he going to play backup point guard? Or if not, he's going to be having to get minutes at the 2 unless he's not playing. Obviously, Keon's in front of Devin, but is he in front of Malik Monk? Malik's going to get 20-plus minutes a night. Zach LaVine's getting 30-plus minutes a night. DeMar DeRozan averaged 36 minutes a night last year. He's not going to dip under 30. Like, there's only a certain amount of minutes, and we saw, I mean, Keon's minutes have been a point of contention. Some argue that was the final straw for Mike Brown. So we saw him get good minutes under Doug. That should definitely be noted, but I don't know what the plan is for this season. We know that, again, Scott Perry has emphasized defensive-focused, defensive-minded players. Keon is really the only player on this roster that you can definitely say is defensive-minded. You can throw Keegan in there too, but I don't know. It's just going to be really, really interesting to see how rotationally all of these guys are going to fit in at the beginning of the season, because to me, I mean, I haven't done the minutes chart yet, but there's going to be an odd man out here. If not two.
For sure. I mean, it might be any given night. Like, there's going to be a week stretch where one guy plays and a week stretch where he doesn't, because there is a crowdedness to all this. And you mentioned all the guards there. Like, We could throw in Terrence Davis got re-signed today. I don't think that he actually gets in the way of anybody's minutes. That's more of like what seems to be, according to Keith Smith, Exhibit 10 deal. Yeah.
I didn't throw Neek Clifford into that mix.
Neek has to get minutes. You would think. If he doesn't deserve it, but he should. He should. It's one of the very few upside pieces.
It almost has to be at the 3 at that point.
Yeah. They're running. It's like
back up for DeMar.
It's got to be like damn near all 3 guard lineups this year, right? Like I think the starting lineup,
it's not possible.
For sure.
Especially if you consider DeMar, which I do a guard. Like
yeah. I think there's moments where DeMar's your 4. Like I kind of you look at like who's the backup 4 on this team. It's either Doug McDermott, it's Dario Saric, it's Isaac Jones, it's Maxime Reynaud if you want to be real optimistic, which I will not personally be doing that this early into the season. And meanwhere, you just have
that's it. Those are your options. That's it.
That's it. That's it.
Like you can't play Neek Clifford at a forward position at a 4 position.
They're gonna have to.
Not right now. Not right now. But he's
they
gonna have to beef up at some point.
I'm playing him over Dario Saric personally, unless Dario shows me something differently. I'm not optimistic. Like Isaac, I still think Isaac is more of a 5 than a 4. I don't think the 3 looked amazing. I know they're working on that, but I still need to see that personally. I worry about the spacing with this team. That doesn't get much better with Dennis Schroder. I was going through something like the catch and shoot numbers earlier today. Shocker, they're not very good. And it is a tough scenario, and I think it just is even more painful to talk about like, okay, they have all this guard depth, then when you compare it to the wing forward depth, where it just does not exist at all.
Yeah.
But then, the next question everybody asks, like, okay, well, who should they have gotten? And there's not the greatest just like free agents out there necessarily. Free agent market was super weird this offseason. And I think will continue to be as people just don't really want to reach free agency as often as they can, really. That it's not like there were phenomenal options, but it does very much feel like, hey, you needed to shake this up a little bit. And that didn't quite happen. But I also am somebody that's going to give a little bit of the benefit of doubt of like, hey, maybe there was just nothing they thought was good. And so in the meantime, we're in this limbo where you're trying to play hard and just get the most out of these guys, not only just for this season's record, but potentially even more so just to like help some of these guys trade value a little bit at times while you rework eventually. But it feels like we are betting on cohesion, or maybe not cohesion, but like this team growing together more than they did last year, playing together, team-oriented basketball, right? Unselfish on that end, the defensive orientation, like that's everybody being on the same page. You see those from really locked in groups that like have internal belief. And I just feel like there's going to be a cloud over this season of we're waiting for a shoe to drop, which I don't know how that's going to affect a locker room. Like you think, I don't know what conversations are with DeMar, but if DeMar is just waiting for himself to get traded, that's a tough mental spot to be in and be fully committed to all this stuff, and you could say that for some of these guys. Zach, when he gets traded here, is talking about how he just loves to be in a place where he feels wanted. And now, like, is Scott just going to be trying to ship him off again? He's going to feel the type of way about not being wanted anymore. Like I worry how this is going to go, but I also am very aware that like, this isn't Scott inherited this. There's not a way to flip this overnight, but I don't think it's going to be the most fun process that we have to go throughout this year, and just attempt to keep track of some of these younger guys in the process and see what sort of retooling you can do in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating to see the start of the season, because they definitely are going to obviously have faith. Like, that is the one thing that isn't obviously it's not talked about a lot, but these guys aren't going to go into the season being like, feeling down on themselves, feeling like, oh man, we're going to be a 500 team. Hopefully, like, these guys are going to come in and, by the time, especially the coaching staff and things like that, like, these guys end up by the start of the season really talking themselves into, we are going to be a competitive team. And if I'm going to put myself in that mindset, like, there is a conversation of, Zach LaVine got here without a training camp, and what will it look like to what you were just kind of laying out? Like, with an actual organized team oriented system where it's not just, hey, we're hooping essentially. Like you said, I mean, it really did look like an NBA combine out there at points where it's just guys who are trying to show what they got and just not really, pulling on the same string. So what will it look like with these guys kind of as a unit? I guess your hope is that, again, Zach LaVine can turn into like an all-star caliber player. We know he's a top level scorer in this league. If he can kind of turn that into, I don't want to say functional points, but being a little bit more impactful. They have names, right? Like the Kings have some DeRozan, like he is.
Well,
a
I
name.
mean,
There's
you could. He is a name. He is a name.
He is
you could
name.
do the whole like, hey, Curry really blew up mid to late 20s. Like Malik's around the same timeline. Does Malik have another step in his game? Like there is a world where one
There's
of
talent.
these guys that we're saying is just as good as they're going to be somehow take another step, right? Like Domas got up to 40% 3-point shooting, even though he gets to the line, the laces up every single time he's out there.
Yeah, no, and I think that there's definitely like an element of like, it's not just depth for the sake of depth either. Like it is good depth, right? Like it's not like we're talking about, like who were we going to go to? It still is LaVine, Monk, Ellis, like Nate Clifford. Like these are all guys that we do feel good about. And so again, I feel weird feeling moments of optimism about this team because I do think, kind of like I talked about earlier, if they get an identity, I could see if a Russell Westbrook joins the team, that this team is just an MFer every single day, and you come out every night, and they're just really not fun to play against, and they end up being 500 and being in Sacramento, being able to watch a team that actually cares. I mean, how many times, I don't know, Brenden, how many times you were there for more so like the early Golden One Center years, but in the late DeMarcus Cousins era, there was just so much talk about effort, so much talk about just, it looks like these guys don't care and, defensively are just letting guys go by. I really do think that a lot of fans are discounting how much they would enjoy just a team that might be 500, might be a little under 500, might be a little above 500, that just goes out every single night, busts their ass, and like surprises a lot of teams because they give such hard effort and really don't quit. Like in the NBA, we see crazy 15, 25, 30-point comebacks on certain nights. These are the again, if you get these kind of guys that show up every single night, they can have a lot of crazy comebacks like that where it's just all about resilience. And, Doug Christie is going to be the perfect kind of coach to lead a type of team like that, a gritty, dirty, defensive-minded, grinded out kind of team. Like, I think that's exactly what he would love. So if I had to be optimistic about this team and where they're going, because I do feel like there is an incredible amount of pessimism, and I would say justifiably so. I do have to consider that there is a universe out there. There is a 5% chance, or whatever you want to put it at, that this Kings team is, whether they're good or not, could be a different conversation, but at least is entertaining and one that we look back on at least more fondly than we have these past two seasons. Because Brenden, like we said to start this entire thing off, we just haven't had fun watching basketball these past 2 years, between the disappointment of the season after the Beam team and then just the team completely collapsing last year. It just hasn't been fun to watch this team and to, on some nights, go to the arena and know there's going to be some drama that is just going to be overshadowing the entirety of the game.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, definitely. Last season specifically, and that's a great point. I mean, there is, a very pessimistic tone in all this, but I do think that there is value, just specifically watchability in this team. They are going to, I think, fit the same thing that I've said about, I feel like every year that I've covered the Kings: good enough offensively to win any given night and bad enough defensively to lose on any given night. But the hope is, hey, maybe we can get out of the bottom 5, out of the bottom 10 on defense, and I personally don't think they have the greatest personnel in order to do so. But one of the things you mentioned that I think is a great point is there does feel like a little bit of cohesion here between Scott and Doug. And that is a big difference between the Mike and Monty thing, because Monty's up there kind of saying essentially almost what I was right there, that, hey, we just have to be good enough defensively, and we're just going to be badass on offense. And Mike is sitting there like, dude, I need defenders. Like, what are we talking about? But these guys feel like they're moving in this. Yes, I need JTA on this team. Where's my Mo Harkless, bro? KZ Ogpala. Need them all. But I do think there is a little bit of cohesion there, and that's where you can be like, hey, you could argue they helped Keegan grow into a good defender, whoever that credit may be towards, but someone in the Kings organization helped with that. And maybe there's more for some of these other guys. So I think that there is value in, they could beat the Nuggets in the regular season, no problem. Maybe not no problem, but like, I don't struggle to see them winning a game in the regular season against damn near anyone. If it's the right night, they could show up. I also think they could lose to anyone. But that's that's an okay reality to be in, I would say, just from a viewer standpoint, going into every single night of like, hey, they got a chance tonight. And I think there is value in that. And that's where, you mentioned the Russ Westbrook thing, like, they're going to play their ass off. Part of me wonders is like, do you kind of want Russ in there to just like weed through all this stuff? Is there an aspect of like, hey, Russ doesn't like that guy? There might be a reason.
I used to call Jimmy Butler a dog sniffing dog. That's what
that is great.
You need a dog that can sniff out the other dogs.
That's a great line. A great line. That feels just like Russ. Russ would be sniffing everywhere, bro. I could see that for sure. All right. I didn't mean to. All right. Well, yeah, you're right. You're right. Crazy. Sniffing everywhere is not a good one. Sniffing everywhere is not a good one.
Come on.
Yeah.
Never mind. Let's not go there. Anyway,
I'll ask you after. Yeah, maybe not my greatest moment. Maybe not the greatest one. Wild. Well.
Oh man. Woo!
You think he'd volunteer for it, or would he have to be a hostage?
We are going to have fun on this. That is what we are going to do. That will be the identity of this podcast.
There you go. Identity. That's what we're trying to create over these next couple of years. We also could use a little bit more length and athleticism. I would. Oh, Jesus Christ, Chris. You're just not going to let me get away with shit, huh? Yeah. Just athletic. Never mind. All right. So, I have another segment that I want to work through a little bit here. Like that transition.
Yeah.
Okay, so we kind of already went through one of them. And to be transparent, we're going to workshop some segments here, early days of bringing this back, And no shame in saying ChatGPT absolutely helped with this name, because I like to think I'm fairly creative, but this one I would not have came up with. We're going with crown or clown, Chris. The idea is going to be that I'm going to present to you a take of mine. And we'll do this throughout the year. You'll have some takes as well here. And you can either crown or clown on my take.
All right.
Only got a couple. And we did kind of already go through the first one. The first thing I had wrote down, and again, clearly I thought this was a take, and I was a little surprised that you mentioned it, and glad you did, but the Kings should consider trading Keon Ellis. Crown or clown?
We're gonna put the crown on.
Put that right on.
Crown on that one for sure. Yeah, I mean that is a kingly take for sure. I just feel like the writing to me is, I won't say it's on the wall, but it just makes a lot of sense. I mean, we definitely listed it out a little bit earlier, but for the most part, I mean, yeah, he's an unrestricted free agent. It's, to me, I know you said that the Kings can pretty much sign him leading it up to free agency as well, but I get that they can say they wanted to wait and be patient, but if I'm Keon Ellis, I'm taking it personal, and I'm saying if you wanted me, you had the chance to get me, but now I have to do myself the service of seeing what's out there for me, because I get articles sent to me all the time from friends saying, oh, Keon Ellis thrown in this trade. Like, he is coveted across the NBA. A lot of teams he would fit in. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel like Keon Ellis is absolutely doing himself a service to hit free agency. So if I'm the Kings and I know that, I'm getting something out of it. And if he is going to hit free agency, you can always talk to him then. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to ruin the relationship. You throw the most money at him, you can still have the chance to get him. But to me, the Kings should try and recoup some sort of value, because frankly, that's also something the Kings just haven't done in the past in general, is recognize that this is an opportunity to gain an asset, whether it even be as low as a draft asset. Getting something for a piece that is about to go out the door is something that they should prioritize.
Yeah, I think one step back to take two steps forward is the idea here, right? So definitely nothing about Keon's skill set. I think he's obviously contributing to good teams, but I would say that it's just more about getting opportunistic timing with potential value when you don't have much value on this team.
Opportunistic, right?
Prudent yet, prudent yet something. I think it might be opportunistic. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right. Yes, I think we're going to get a lot of these sayings from Scott throughout the year, which is a trend. You know, it's how a lot of these guys are going to be. Mike had plenty of his own sayings as well. Other one I have here for you, crown or clown, my take, Chris, and let us know in the comments as well.
Yeah, please.
Keegan Murray is Sacramento's most important player. Crown or clown, the take, Chris. I'll let you take it how you want first, and I will explain myself after.
Okay. Yeah, why not? We'll crown it. We'll crown it. We'll crown that, absolutely. Yeah, I guess just in terms of like, if Keegan is gonna take another step forward, that's incredibly important for the Kings and would be a huge development that I don't think that they're necessarily planning for. And also, I mean, I'm trying to. The real process here is I was trying to figure out if Keegan is this team's best trade asset, and I think it still is true.
Gotta be, right?
Like he is, even though he's about to be on a brand new and maybe he is their most valuable piece until he is on that new contract. But
right,
I want to say as of right now, Keegan Murray is probably their most valuable trade asset, and so. Yeah, I think that's fair to say Keegan Murray is the most important player on the Kings. And to that point, even if Keegan gets hurt, both of those things are out the door, right? Development and as a potential trade chip, out the door.
Yeah, I initially, when I wrote it, meant it as the future of the Kings, but I think that both are true. You know, to your point, if he goes down, we talked about the lack of forward depth on this team. Like, I don't even know that I want to go through the scenario. Like,
hola.
Yeah. Right. Send someone out to Real, bro. Like, figure it out. I don't know. If Dario Saric is starting for this team, they're not in a good spot. Maybe they wouldn't go in Dario Saric. This is no hate on that. I feel like I'm like crapping.
I don't know where else they would go. Where else would Isaac Jones? Like, is Max going to start?
Doug McDermott? Like,
oh my God. Forgot
Doug McDermott.
Shout out Doug. Shout out
Doug, bro.
The wing depth.
Yeah, shout out Doug. So I just think that both are true. That I think his development is also one of the most important things. We talk about, like, what are you watching for this year? That is 1A for me, no questions asked. Yeah. If Keegan can turn into an all-star, then that changes everything here, right? And obviously, like, the Kuminga addition would fall into that as well. That's why Kuminga is interesting, because he's one of the few guys, similarly, I would say, in certain aspects, to Keegan with that sort of upside. So I think that there might be something there. But that's all I got for Crown or Clown right now, Chris. That is segment. There you go. That's a segment that we'll keep doing as we move forward here. Also happy to take any Crown or Clown suggestions from people in the comments. YouTube, you could add us on Twitter. Whatever it may be. I think we're also going to do a little Q&A segment at times as well. Try to take a fan question every time. I think we've come up with some names. I think I had like Beanbag. I think you had a better one too.
A really good one.
Beanbag. Not bad, you know. So we'll workshop some things, and we're happy to take recommendations.
Absolutely. Yeah, didn't have anything that was great on the mailbag front, but we've got some other ideas. Written down.
We have plenty of ideas. And to close out each one of these, Like to bring back something used to do on King's Pulse as well. So we're keeping
Ooh.
it here. A little overtime segment. We
Oh
are
yeah.
fully through the show. No, great sound effect. Great
I'm
sound
sure you
effect.
have posted that.
Hey, that is way more natural. I think you might have just committed to doing that every time, just so you know.
Damn it.
You might be in deep now. Overtime. Regulation is over. We're going to talk about whatever the hell we want. You mentioned it a little
This is
bit.
where I'm gonna let it fly too. I tried to
Hell
not to
yeah.
swear in the first hour, so I'm gonna
Absolutely.
let that shit fly now.
Fair warning. Fair warning. Chris, you mentioned it. We've been playing 2K.
Yes.
And I
sporadically, not nearly as much as we were last year. Like not
No.
even close to as much.
Which
as we were
I
last
think speaks about the game, bro. And first of all, if anybody wants to play 2K, I am super down to play 2K with
Please.
people for what it's
We need
worth. I think
squad.
Chris and I will also be streaming
Yeah.
some 2K games
Oh,
on
yeah, at some
King's
point.
Pulse Twitch at some point here if y'all want to tune into that. I also know that Keon and Isaac be playing 2K a
Yes.
lot. And
Devin
I figured
Carter
it would
as well, I
be
think I saw.
Devin Carter. Okay, I've seen
Yeah.
Neat Clifford post
Devin
on
Carter's
his
got a
story.
center. I saw that.
See, so this is what I wanted to ask you, right? Anybody that's
Oh,
playing
okay.
2K right now knows that these 7-4s are stupid.
Oh, okay.
Okay. You can't contest them. They're just taking wide open shots, even though they have literally 9 people on them because their own teammates are trying to contest them just to see if the shit's broken or not, and it's broken. Which of these Kings players?
Fill people
Yeah,
in. Just to fill people in real quick. 7-4. We're just saying essentially 2K is trying to integrate more of the hey, Victor Wembanyama's a thing, so why can't you create a Victor Wembanyama? Well, this is their answer to it. Is they have allowed now like people to build their characters up to 7-4, which you could imagine creates a whole lot of chaos because as Victor Wembanyama has now, imagine if there was 60%
a shit ton
of
of Victor
NBA
Wembanyama.
Victor Wembanyama. That's essentially what has happened to NBA 2K Online.
Yes.
Now, please proceed.
Thank you for the clarity for anybody that is not, plugged into the 2K community here. Like I'm clearly in the weeds. Yeah, absolutely. I just find it hilarious to wonder which one of these Kings players is being the sweaty guy that is playing a 7-4 nonstop because they're just trying to win games. I will also share, while you think, a funny story from last year, asking Keon and Isaac a little bit about playing 2K.
Okay.
I just find it fun.
I
I think there's always, I'm pretty sure you definitely have. You'll remember.
Okay.
I always, we're similar age to these guys, which makes for a fun dynamic with certain things. And every once in a while, realize I'm like, oh, like we kind of relate a little bit with certain things, And here, Keon talking about playing 2K a little bit. I went back and forth with him a little last year, and he's like, oh yeah, I play with Isaac a lot. And at one point, I was having a conversation with Isaac, and I was curious, like, what builds these guys make. It did the classic, like, if you're a big, do you make a big? Which really the answer is these guys are NBA players. They're making multiple, right? I'm gonna just make all of them. But the funniest answer when I asked Isaac, what do you usually play? He said, whatever Keon tells me to. So clearly that's modern rookie hazing. Is Keon being like, all right, Rook, get on your big.
You're going to spend $1,000 on these 10 builds that I'm going to send you.
Yeah. Like, Isaac, actually, I made your build. I'm going to send it to you right now. It has 99 rebound and no shooting. So
I did forget about that.
Good luck.
So
maybe the answer is Isaac.
Yeah, I was gonna say for that reason it's Keon Ellis.
That's a good point.
No, actually, no. You're right. The answer is Isaac because Keon is saying you're gonna be the one to make the 7-4 guy and do whatever, and then I'm gonna eat off of you because that's really where you can eat is being the distraction. So I guess by proxy it is Keon, but the true answer I guess is because of your story, Isaac.
That makes sense. I also could see Devin being a 7-4 guy.
Yeah.
It just feels like a little like he plays bigger than he is already, Yes,
absolutely. Running into Devin Carter's player model on 2K would be really, really funny. That would be really fucking funny to see like a 7-4 version of Devin Carter.
They also have like
they give them like their face scan, like their real like player scans. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
no, they definitely do. And like, yeah, if you're the top player in like the
Right on
rec,
cue, too. Matt George hits us up. It's
that is
funny.
the other guy that we'd be playing a bunch of 2K with.
That
Um,
guy.
yeah, so I'm sure at some point, I streamed a little bit of 2K with him before. I'm sure we will
Yeah.
all get around to doing that at some point here. But I think that's all I got, Chris. Is there,
It's pretty
first
solid.
episode back here? Appreciate you
Yeah.
hopping on. Any other last little things from you here?
I don't think so. I'm just really excited for Media Day. It's just such a fun day, such a random day. It goes by really, really fast when we're in it, and nothing really ends up being like too big from it. Like it's never like anybody's, gonna make headline news from Media
Frankie
Day.
always
But
says first day back at
yeah,
school.
very first day back at school vibes, and it's just the best, man. It's just the best.
Yeah, for sure. I guess other thing we should probably mention, game plan for
Oh yeah,
our content
duh.
here a little bit. Yeah, it might
Should've
make
been ready to
sense.
start.
Well, people don't want to hear all that right away. If you're still here, then you care. That's the
There you go.
logic, at least a little bit, right?
For sure.
We plan on putting out an episode every Monday. That's going to be a little, it might vary a little bit what time on Monday. That might mean late Sunday night, but you can expect an episode every Monday. With the potential for a bonus episode later in the week. We're going to leave that one a little up in the air. As you guys may know, we do plenty of other Kings content for other places as well. So we're fitting this in when we can, even though it obviously will be a priority of ours. We're gonna put a lot of work into this and keep this up here. Again, like Chris mentioned at the top, I think one of the main things from my perspective is just having full creative freedom, not having to be careful with certain things. Not that I'm not like careful with
Yeah, that's what I
obviously
was gonna
things
say
that I'm
too. It's not like
saying, you
we're
know what I
being
mean? But
restricted elsewhere either. It's not
no,
as if like we're being confined and we need this to stretch our legs. It's more
it's
just
just that, hey, what I say is not attached to somebody else on this platform. You know what I mean? We got free reign
Right.
to do whatever we
Right.
want here. And we very much plan to do so. We're definitely going to have guests on too. Definitely going to be talking to people. I'm sure at some point, like we're good friends with Hunter Patterson. We used to cover the Kings when over to Detroit. I'm sure we'll talk to him about Dennis Schroder at some point. Also, just shoot the shit a little bit for fun. I think that's definitely going to be part of this when it comes down to it. Trying to be entertaining. You know what I mean? Like I like listening to Club 520. I'm not always there for the basketball. Gotta say, a little bit of entertainment sometimes. Tea time. He also has.
time show.
I did a long drive yesterday, and I heard they have a new ad on there where he is doing an ad read for some underwear company, and at the end, T goes, "Keep your drawers on." I was like, that's crazy. You got to lead into it, though. Got to lead into it.
My God.
They spent too long dodging all that. Anybody not in the weeds of all that, clearly we are. And I'm sure that some of you are here as well. So appreciate everybody tuning in to this relaunch of the Kings Pulse podcast. For myself, Brenden Nunes, and Chris Watkins, we are available on all audio listening platforms as well as on YouTube. Always happy to take comments, tweets, whatever sort of feedback y'all may have, questions for future episodes, that beam bag. You got any crown or clown takes or reactions to anything we have to say? Let us know. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with the latest on the Sacramento Kings. Keep your finger on the pulse of the team. Every Monday will be an episode from us. Thanks to everybody for listening.